Hi and welcome to VYAPT Growth Story, a platform curated for phenomenal growth in business. And in our growth story today, we have with us Mr. Anshuman Singh, who is the chairman at Stellar Value Chain Solutions Private Limited. Hello, Mr. Anshuman. Nice to have you in our growth story.
Hi Pankaj, good morning. Nice to be here.
Anshuman, we will be having four curiosities as we do in our growth story. And all our curiosities are very, very important considering the fact that you are one such company into the logistics and the supply chain business who has been doing some tremendous work, focusing on your client much better what the existing companies have been focusing on and creating a difference in the world, which the entire world is seeing today. So the first question which I have to you is, can you talk about the phenomenal growth which the Stellar Value Chain Solutions company has been seeing in the last 5 6 years? Some of the things which you'd like to probably share with us.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thanks for the introduction. So, stellar value chain growth, stellar company's growth has been a growth in progress, not for the last 6.5 years since we founded this company, but it's been a growth in progress for the last 25 years. It's a culmination of all the knowledge that I and some of my team members have gathered over the last 25, 30 years. Uh, I term Stellar as Destiny's company. It is not a creation of my own. It just happened over a period of time, and we kept evolving along with time, and finally culminated in Stellar being created in 2016. If I look at it, I got by accident into the field of materials management, then by accident into the field of logistics, and I became a general manager supply chain of a very large corporate 23 years ago in 2000. And in the year 2000 I became a member of the executive committee of a very large company, and was designated as GM supply chain.
Mhm.
It was the first designation in the country like this. Nobody till then had a designation of GM supply chain, and I just happened to be there. There were very few books on supply chain. There was very little material on the internet on supply chain. But since the companies that I had joined, and earlier to that, I was the head of logistics of a company, and then I joined this large textile company as head of supply chain. Since I had been taken in that role, obviously I had to prove myself, and for that I had to study and learn a lot. So all material available, I learned. I also, to enhance my learning, I started teaching the subject of supply chain in two management colleges in Bombay. In fact, I can be credited for creating the subject of logistics and supply chain in MBA curriculum of the final year in Bombay management colleges. There was no course in supply chain. The advantage of that teaching was to teach, I had to study. And to study, and study enabled me to learn. So by
Okay.
default, because of my designation, because of my role in that company, and because of my teaching, I gathered more and more knowledge in the area of supply chain. And आज वो बोलते हैं हम तो supply chain guru, but it happened by accident. After that textile company, I joined another retail company, a very small retail company, which was a 100 crore company, as the president of supply chain. And I worked with that company in two stints, first as a professional, later on as an entrepreneur, and finally left that company when that company was 60,000 crores. So 100 crores to 60,000 crores in two stints in a retail group, which was the largest retail group in India at that point of time, gave me an opportunity to sharpen and hone my supply chain skills on at an incredible level. I mean, I was just lucky. I just happened to be there. And when I was the head of logistics of a ceramic tiles company, I was handling 1,000 SKUs. When I became the GM supply chain of a very large textile company, I was handling 10,000 SKUs. And finally, in my first stint, when I was handling the supply chain of a retail company, I was handling 100,000 SKUs. And
Mm.
finally, when I rejoined that group, because I left that group in 2004 and I went as the CEO of a very large textile conglomerate in India as the India CEO. And
Mhm.
I was CEO of Welspun from 2004 to 2006.
Mm.
I was leading a textile company and I created a retail company in that, and we created several hundred retail stores there. That was almost like 100,000 SKUs. And then I went back to Future Group as an entrepreneur and I co-founded Future Supply Chain. And at that point of time, we had approximately 3 million SKUs. Finally, that expanded to 5 or 7 million SKUs. So a journey from a 100 SKUs stock keeping unit for products to 5 million products, a journey from a 100 crore company to a 70,000 crore company, journey from supply logistics handling only transportation to journey of supply chain, right from the vendor raw material procurement, inbound transportation, inbound storage, inbound inventory management, manufacturing planning across the country, finished goods inventory management, national storage, regional storage, taking the goods all across, delivering to distributors, and finally doing retail and handling retail. Just kept on enhancing my supply chain domain, and it was like destiny going along. So if you look at it, I developed expertise in three areas in my career. First, as a professional, I developed my expertise in textile and then in retail, and finally in supply chain and logistics. And when I had to start my entrepreneurial journey, I had a choice to choose between one of these three areas. So there were pioneers of the industry who had already done a lot of work in textiles and who had done a lot of work in retail. But in the field of supply chain and logistics, there was nobody who had done anything. It is a boring back-end work. It does not excite people. It's a tedious, laborious, transaction-based activity. Requires phenomenal transactional handling and a phenomenal amount of pan-India management. Nobody had yet read into this area, and I just happened to be there. So obviously, it was all for the taking. So I took advantage of that situation and thought that this is my calling for a legacy building in the area of supply chain. And that's how I started. First as a professional in supply chain, and in 2006 end, I finally co-founded a company called Future Supply Chain. In that company gave me a platform which has enabled me to create Stellar in 2016. In my previous stint as a co-founder, I built a team, took them across the world to every single part of the world, right from the east coast of China to the west coast of the US and everything in between, including all countries of Europe. And there's hardly any country and hardly any supply chain system, logistics infrastructure, logistics technology, supply chain technology platforms that we have not studied. We've studied almost everything that there is in the world. And in 2007, we realized that India was primitive. We were extremely unorganized and there was a lot to do. So I chose supply chain and logistics as a destiny out of the three areas that I had expertise in. And I decided that this will be my destiny. I'm following that destiny. From 2007 to 2016, I pursued that destiny as a co-founder of Future Supply Chain. And today I'm following that destiny as the founder and chairman of Stellar, and trying to, the whole vision statement of Stellar is transforming the supply chain of this nation. And the mission of this company is to help corporates grow, increase their revenues, increase their profits, reduce their inventories, free a lot of cash flows, increase their speed to customers, and reduce their cost to customers. Now, these are two conflicting ideas. Reducing cost to customers and increasing speed to customers are basically two conflicting ideas. And Stellar as a company and I as an individual have perhaps over the last 30 years mastered this conflict management, and that is what we actually, our promise is that we will increase your speed as well as reduce your cost at the same time. And this does not happen on its own. It requires a lot of infrastructure, process, systems, technology, automation, wisdom, experience, expertise, and a combination of all these factors to deliver to the customer. Hence, we started Stellar in 2016 to give the first independent entrepreneurial 3PL company in the country. All the other companies in this space are either subsidiaries of large multinational corporates or are subsidiaries of some large Indian corporates and do not have the freedom to offer what the customers want, or have the baggage of the parent group, or have the baggage of the parent group's product category. Stellar is an independent consumer or consumption supply chain company. We today run 14 million square feet of operations and a few thousand trucks. The only integrated supply chain company with pan-India modern 3PL warehousing and value-added distribution and transportation across the country. We work across multiple sectors. One of them is e-commerce. We are very big in e-commerce. That's a sector I had not known before Stellar. That's a sector we mastered over the last 6 years, and it's a very large sector for us. The other sector is consumer. Consumer by itself consists of several subsectors. It includes fashion and retail, which has been always been my core expertise. Other than fashion and retail, we have consumer durables, we have pharma, we have FMCG, we have grocery, we have furniture, we have home, we have general merchandise, and so on. And we cater to the entire gamut of the consumer space. And the third sector that we cater to is automotive. In automotive, our greatest play is in aftermarket, and in addition to aftermarket, we also do in-plant logistics and inbound to manufacturing logistics. But aftermarket has been the largest play, and we have now started in-plant logistics as well. So consumer, e-commerce, and auto are the large sectors in Stellar. We run 14 million square feet of space, several thousand people, or many thousands indirectly employed, many thousands directly employed. Pan India presence, 21 city coverage, 70 large operations across the country, connect to almost all the 664 districts of the country. We can store anywhere and deliver anywhere for all the corporates in these three sectors. So we are proud of what we have built, but I would still say we are work in progress and we have just about started. It's a company. If you look at my logo, it has India in the logo itself. It is Stellar India. And the whole aim of this company is to utilize all our experience and knowledge to transform the supply chain of this nation, because 96-97% of this is still unorganized, primitive, inefficient. It is efficient for companies which do not need modern supply chains, but it is now inefficient for companies which have now grown in scale, have a proliferation of SKUs, and need modern supply chain practices. All corporates which have large number of products and send their products to large number of selling points are the companies which need company like Stellar. Those are the companies which have a many product to many selling point relationship, and those are the companies which need modern supply chain, modern automation, modern technology, and they are the ones which need companies like Stellar, and that is the need that we are catering to, and that is a gap we are fulfilling. We are trying to the government is doing its bit in transforming the infrastructure of this country. The corporates, the private corporates have also got to do their bit to transform the supply chain infrastructure of this country, and that's what Stellar is doing. Our mission is to reduce costs, improve speed of our corporate customers, and
Mhm.
we are doing that quite well.
Really a very nice one in terms of the kind of growth story if you talked around for stellar value chain. Two things which actually strike my mind was you have been creator throughout your journey. Being a CEO at 2000 in 2004, I think you must be in your 30s or just entered your 30. Probably, one question which comes in my mind is, you talked about is Stellar as one of the organization which is probably creating supply chain. The mission is around the supply chain has to be really more disciplined and more be effective and efficient in India. Do you think that India is a marketplace of the world? And do you think even the growth of other countries also depends on the growth of India as we move forward? Uh, Now, just one more added question to it is, now when you talk about the growth of other countries and the growth of India depends upon the improved and efficient supply chain, what are some of the challenges? You already talked about some of the challenges, but what are some of the other challenges which you think the industry as a whole, logistics and supply chain industry is facing as of now?
I am a great believer in the consumption story of India. I've always been advocating the fact that this country has demographic dividend, and this is a country where consumption will always increase. There'll never be a year in the next 100 years, or maybe at least 50 years, that we can imagine that this country will ever see a dip in consumption. This 1.4 billion population will keep on consuming more and more. So this is a huge consumption story. I've been in retail for the last 25 years, and I've seen consumption keep consumption growing. And in the last 25 years, we have never seen consumption dip for even once. Whether it be the 2009 crisis or any other crisis, consumption in this country has never dipped, can never dip. It's a country where consumption will only keep on increasing. Now, in terms of consumption supply chain or consumer supply chain that we focus upon, the supply chain of the consumption story is almost like a telecom consumption. The telecom sector in this country skipped two generations. We never got penetrated by the telephone. and the telephone became extinct, but we got the most penetrated, became most penetrated country in terms of the cell phone. And today, we are the highest consumer of data. So we have skipped 2, 3 generations. We have beaten the whole world in the area of telecom and in the area of data. I personally believe that in the story of consumption and consumption supply chain, this is the country to watch out for. The two eastern countries, China and India, are the countries which will keep on driving consumption, not only because of their sheer population, but because of their economic growth on a GDP per capita basis year on year. So a huge population combined with a very aggressive GDP growth year on year will continue to make this country a complete consumption story. And that is why a company like Stellar needs to correct the consumption supply chain so that the goods reach the consumers at the right time, at the right cost, and still keep the inventories low. That's what we have been working upon. And just to give you an example, so you asked me what are the some of the supply chain challenges in the industry in India. One of the biggest supply chain challenges has been the understanding of a lot of old school corporates on what modern supply chains can do for their businesses. That has been a challenge in the past on which we have been working for 25, 30 years. And believe me, we have been fairly successful in now converting a lot of the corporates who were hesitant 10 years ago to actually believe in modern supply chain systems. And the e-commerce sector actually helped us convey that story to people. For example, when we used to talk to people that we will reduce your warehousing time, we'll reduce your transportation time. We implemented trucks with GPS systems. We implemented with warehouses with the latest warehouse management systems. We invested a lot of infrastructure in warehouses. Some of the large corporates who have done well in the past used to question us, we have been doing things well. Why do you want to invest in so much in the warehouse? I said, there will be a time when you'll see the benefits. Today, those corporates have started seeing the benefits because 5 years ago, normally a corporate would be happy if the goods, right from the time that the orders were received from either their stores or their dealers or their buyers, and if the goods could be delivered in 10 to 15 days to the shops or to the dealers or to the buyers. The e-commerce phenomena of the last 5, 7 years has actually changed that mindset. And we were an equal part in that. When we started doing warehousing for retail, 24 hours became the new benchmark. Earlier, 48 hours to 72 hours of processing time in the warehouse was standard. We brought it down to 24 hours, then we brought it down to 18 hours, and we felt we had done a great job. And then 7, 8 years ago, we started doing e-commerce. And the last 5 years, we did a lot of e-commerce. E-commerce companies collaboratively with us brought down the warehousing processing time from 18 hours to 4 hours, 4 hours to 3 hours, 3 hours to 2 hours, 2 hours to 1 hour. And today, processing times are down to 20 minutes. One order gets processed in 20 minutes. And now some of the quick commerce grocery companies are making it 2 minutes and 3 minutes because in 10 minutes they have to deliver to the customer's house. So that's the dramatic shift in supply chain from 72 hours to almost like 72 seconds. That's the dramatic change that has happened in the supply chain thought process amongst all the supply chain thought users. One of the advantages I had when I talked to my corporate customers is that when I became CEO of a large corporate in 2004, I was the first person in India who became CEO from a supply chain background. I mean, people from sales all the time become CEOs. People from operations become CEOs. People from finance become CEOs. People with a supply chain background, nobody had become a CEO. I have become a CEO of a large corporate from a supply chain background for the first time. So they used to listen to me that this guy runs business. This guy has been on the supply chain side, and now he's talking as a third-party supply chain provider. He knows all the three sides, so he's talking sense. And today we can see the change. For example, one of our largest auto customers for whom we run the largest aftermarket auto CV spare parts distribution center in the country. Earlier, all aftermarket auto parts companies would have been okay if the goods reached from their order to the dealers in 10 days. Today, because of the change in the environment, this auto corporate, which is the largest auto corporate in the country, is working closely with us in bringing that time down from 10 days to 7 days to 4 days to 2 days. We have already reached 2 days. And very soon we'll be reaching 24 hours. And then it will go to right from the time of order to delivery. So that's the kind of progression that is happening. So it's an opportunity as well as a challenge. The challenge is that not all corporates become so progressive quickly. They take time to do it. But once they buy the concept, they work collaboratively, and this is a collaborative business. A supply chain provider cannot do magic on its own. A corporate, without the help of a supply chain provider, cannot do the magic alone. Both sides have to work as true partners and collaboratively make it work. And we work as true partners to. We are not suppliers or vendors to our customers. We are true partners to our customers. We live and breathe for the customer. Everything we do is for our customers, and that is what we are doing. And one of the biggest things that makes this happen is the use of process, use of technology, use of automation, use of grade A plus infrastructure, use of capital expenditure inside the buildings to make it work, integration with the transportation system, integration of a warehouse management system with a TMS system, and integration with the corporate's own ERP or technology can take a lot of training of the people, management of the people, management of the environment. So it's a very hugely transaction based business which requires managing multiple fronts. But that is the secret of the business. Not everybody can get into the business. It's a difficult business. It's not an easy business, but that's good for us. We have just happened to be there. We've done this. We want to create examples of an Indian company transforming supply chain of India and make it a showcase to the world. We don't intend and Stellar to work outside this country ever. We're completely dedicated to this country. But we definitely want to make examples of how we have, just like the data transformation and the telecom transformation, we also want to create a transformation saying, see, this is how we run supply chain as well as any part of the world, but at much lower cost with the same speed. And that's what we are trying to do in India.
That's a very powerful vision, Anshuman, and the kind of benchmark you are going to set is, I'm sure that this is going to transform not only India, but when people see across the world, it is going to transform the world as well. You talked about some of the challenges in this industry, and you talked about a humongous opportunity which the supply chain industry has as of now. Can you also talk about some of the growth story of your customers? What kind of growth have they achieved? How it was a humongous problem for them, and your organization has helped them immensely to come out of those problems and achieve success and growth.
Definitely. So this Stellar was coincidentally, Stellar started its office on the same day that GST got passed in the parliament finally. And one of the biggest challenges of this country was the GST system, which was a legacy taxation system. And most supply chains in this country were configured based on tax purposes and not based on inventory and customer perspectives. Today, the tax purposes supply chain is gone. Today, supply chain is being reconfigured to meet the needs of the customer and how a corporate can serve its customer faster with a lower cost. And that's where we come in. So we have helped a lot of corporates configure their supply chain. In fact, we have to advise a lot, most of our customers. We do network modeling for our customers. We do designing for our customers. We do the reconfiguration of their network based on GST for the customers. Fortunately, unfortunately, unlike you, we don't get paid as consultants. This is all free work. What we get paid for is the execution of the operation as a partner to them. But we also believe that the job of Stellar is to transform the supply chain of the nation. So it is also our job to evangelize the whole concept of nation building in supply chain and to take advantages of the development that the government is doing. For example, GST was a major transformation. But supply chain players like us have to collaborate with corporates to take advantage of that transformation. And that's what we are doing. So we help a lot of corporates reconfigure their network based on their needs of GST, on no longer the tax needs, but on customer needs. We also created a pan-India network of 21 cities where we created large infra parks where we can handle storage, because without these 21 city network of logistic parks, you can't cater to the supply chain of the nation. Then you will be a regional player. Then you can't solve the GST problem. To solve the GST problem, we decided that there are 21 centers in this country which are actually the centers of production and consumption. If you cover these 21 centers across the country, you have covered every consumption and production center, and by default, you have covered the entire supply chain of the nation. In these logistic parks, we don't only do 3PL modern warehousing, but we have also got our transportation centers, our network centers, where we also do distribution for the customers of different products. Now it's almost like a network readily available for the customers. They can choose based on their product category and based on their selling cycle whether they want to store in one or four or nine or all 21 centers in the country based on their penetration in the market. And then we club it with our transportation network so that the goods can reach anywhere and everywhere in the shortest possible time, keeping their inventories at the lowest. This requires a lot of solution designing. This requires a lot of network modeling. This requires a lot of thinking through with the customer and then implementing it. So we have helped a lot of customers in their growth. On the e-commerce sector, we would say that we work with the largest player in the e-commerce segment. We are one of the preferred partners for that customer, and we pride ourselves in being the preferred partner for that customer. That the largest player in the e-commerce sector has worked with us very, very closely in the last 3, 4 years. We have helped them in various ways. We have helped them grow with aggressive speed in the COVID era when they wanted to us to take over operations. We have taken over operations in very quick time. We have started new operations in the shortest possible time. In fact, we have broken all rules. Normally, large operations would take 90 to 120 days. We have gone ahead and started operations even in 1 week. For some of our customers, we have taken over operations in even 24 hours. And that's unbelievable. But this is how we help our customers. We take over operations in the shortest possible time. We create new operations in the shortest possible time. We invest in large infrastructure. And one of our biggest advantages is that we are the only entrepreneurial 3PL company which actually invests in build to suit warehouses in advance. No other 3PL company does that. We build our build to suit grade A plus infrastructure in these 21 cities ahead of time without having a customer. By the time these buildings get ready, we get our customer. In the e-commerce growth, this came in very, very handy. We had the best in class buildings available across the country. We were able to get the e-commerce players' needs fulfilled immediately. We were able to invest in capex quickly, and we were able to start operations in the shortest possible time. This would not have been possible if we did not have the buildings ready. So that is how we have helped them grow. We have also helped our e-commerce companies reduce their time from 4 hours to 3 hours to 2 hours to 1 hour to half an hour to today 20 minutes. We have also helped some of our e-commerce customers in reducing their costs of supply chain dramatically by several percentage points. It's not a small saving that we have brought about. In the auto sector, we have helped some of our auto clients reduce the time from order to dealer from 10 days to now 2 days. We have helped our auto infrastructure, auto companies. I mean, that we handle their aftermarket operations in a lot of places across the country for multiple automotive companies. Believe me, we have helped them reduce cost in every single operation, and we have helped them increase speed in every single operation. And we are able to do this through our productivity processes, using technology and automation, using our solution design, and using our experience. So multiple ways we are helping the customers to increase their speed, reduce their cost, increase their sales, increase their profits. And this is a journey which will continue. This is not a small journey. This will take 10 years. We are focusing on the top 2,000 corporates of the country. We do not do small jobs. We do not do 5,000 square feet, 2,000 square feet, 500 square feet. All our buildings minimum size is 200,000 square feet. All our multi-user client facilities, we bring multiple customers inside the same building. That also helps them save cost because of economies of scale and because of our management allocation across various customers. So this is a journey which will continue. We have also implemented the best of technologies in our transportation side. We also have a cold chain fleet of our own, and we do a lot of distribution for cold chain across the country because we are in the consumption space. And we'll continue to invest in infrastructure. We'll continue to invest in build to suit buildings. We'll continue to invest in people, and we'll continue to invest time and collaboratively working with customers in the automotive, e-commerce, and consumer sectors to evolve their supply chains.
Anshuman, you talked about three things. You talked about scale, you talked about speed, and you talked about quality. These are the three things you talked about in the kind of growth story for your customers, which Stellar as an organization has been constantly providing to the kind of customers you have been working for. In your entire narrative, we found you have been a creator and now into a transformation of the entire supply chain industry providing an edge to your clients and customers, so that they can benefit from it and rewrite the growth story they want to write. uh, this talks a lot about you as a person. This talks about a lot about the kind of you know vision you have for the organization or for the country, and the kind of value system which has been driving you to and stage what you are, as of now. So what values has influenced your leadership style, and how do you inculcate while you run this organization, or have been at positions in other organizations where you have worked for?
So, Pankaj, the values that personally drive me today happen to be the six values, or we call them DNA of Stellar. And of course, my personal values have become the DNA of Stellar, and the DNA of Stellar are my personal value, and they are interchangeable. The first value is nation first. Uh, my grandfather was an IPS officer. My father was a top man in Coal India. So they were all government people. They worked for the nation all their lives, and nobody in my family had ever done business. So working for the nation comes naturally to me. And when I was working as a professional before I became an entrepreneur, even then it was in my heart that someday I want to serve this country. Today I'm serving private corporates, but I want to serve this country. When I became a co-founder and later a full-fledged founder, I realized that all businessmen, all founders, or all entrepreneurs need not work for themselves. You can also mix nation building with your business. You can actually create businesses for the nation too. And that's when I said that let us change the narrative. We are not in this business not for creating wealth. Wealth will be a byproduct. We will create wealth by the sheer scale and size that we create. Wealth creation will be a byproduct. Let us work for the nation. Let's transform the supply chain of this nation. We will never work outside this country. We will not even go to Bangladesh or Sri Lanka for that matter. India has so much to be done. We'll focus only on this nation. We have always cribbed about the governments not doing enough. Believe me, in the last 10 years, the government have been doing far more than we would have thought. It's the corporates who are not doing enough. We, as the corporate supply chain company, we want to do our bit to transform the nation, supply chain of this nation. And that is why this 21 city mega infrastructure club with a transportation network story, working with top 2000 corporates, using global automation. We want to bring the best of global technology, best of global automation, best of global processes, indigenize them so that they can work at Indian costs and deliver the best to the corporates in this country, so that these corporates in these three sectors can take advantage of costs, improve their service, and give their customers delight. And we have been successful in this journey so far, but there's so much more to be done. It will continuously happen. We have helped some corporates reduce their supply chain costs from as high as 7% to today 1.5%, and these are large corporates. Now, if you save a corporate 5% of supply chain cost as a percentage of their sales, that adds 5% straight to their bottom line. In a lot of corporate, that's almost like doubling their profits. Now, that's what we say is transforming the corporate. And by helping and transforming the corporates and by reducing their inventory levels and freeing cash, we are indirectly supporting the nation. By creating great quality infrastructure, putting in automation and technology, we are transforming the supply chain of the nation. And that's what we want all our people in Stellar to believe in, that we are a nation first company. So that's one of the values which drives me and which drives Stellar. The second value is think big. We don't want to do small. That's why we don't work with small companies or small projects or small operations, because this is, ये तो बूंद बूंद करके तालाब भरने वाला नहीं है. ये बड़ा समंदर है. We'll have to take big leaps, big infrastructure, big corporates, big operations, large number of people, large number of transactions. Be ready for the big show. So think big, grow big, do big is what our second DNA is. The third DNA is urgency and speed. There's so much to be done in this country that we better work with urgency and speed. They are very different from haste. Haste is covered. Haste is not welcome. But urgency and speed are extremely important, because we have only as much time. We have only 24 hours in a day, 365 days in a year. And still India has to become a 40 trillion economy by 2047. So I think urgency and speed has to be understood in the larger context of the country, and the same context has to be brought to our company, and that is why we are urgency and speed is a is one of the values that we believe in. One DNA for us is the power of right. The power of right. So a lot of companies have values like righteousness and value like integrity. We call it the power of right, and it's far beyond righteousness and far beyond integrity. For example, people would say integrity is important. People would say, oh, we need to be compliant. For us, these are some basic things. Compliance, etc., too basic to be even defined as a value. We are far beyond. We are saying the power of right means doing everything right, either in words or in actions or even in thoughts. For example, when we say our own people, we said that there has to be complete synchronization between your thoughts, words, and actions. It cannot be that you're thinking something else, saying something else, and doing something else. That's not power of right. Power of right means doing everything right. For example, when we hire people for our warehouse, when we hire workers for our warehouse, a lot of companies have this philosophy of hiring people from other states. They believe that locals can create a lot of problems. So it is always better to have a population which is from outside so that you can run the operation smoothly. We believe exactly in the opposite. We believe that the power of right says that you have to take the whole ecosystem and the whole environment along with you in your growth. They will help your growth, you will help them. You cannot be at loggerheads with them. As a rule, our power of right definition says that we will hire workers in all our operations from the nearest vicinity. From within 1 kilometer, we go to all the higher secondary schools, we go to the villages, we go to the panchayats, we go to meet the sarpanch, we go to the local village temple, and all our hiring happens within the local 1 to 2 kilometer radius of our operations wherever possible, because we believe that we have a role to play in the development of the surrounding ecosystem, and we have to take them along rather than get people from outside. It is also not only a good philosophical thought process, but it's also a good business story, because in the COVID period, when everything shut down, our warehouses did not shut down for a single day because all the people were from the nearby villages and they were the ones who stood by us. We take great care of them. So compliance is basic. We take care of them more than the compliance. And as a result, they belong to Stellar, Stellar belongs to them, and we work collaboratively as one family, and they are the ones who stood by us and work well with us. So power of right is a very overarching statement, and we believe in that core. Of course, we are a foreign funded company, we have FCRA, but those are basics. Power of right is philosophical. We will not do anything wrong, come what may. Even with our customers, to make more money, we will not ever give wrong advice. It will always be the right advice, even if it takes some opportunities away from us. We will do whatever is right for the country with whatever is right for the customer. So, power of right. One of the things in our business is that you have to collaborate with a whole lot of people. You have to collaborate with multiple stakeholders on the corporate side. You have to collaborate with landlord, you have to collaborate with transporters, you have to collaborate with drivers, you have to collaborate with various vendors, and you have to collaborate with your employees. And within your company, various departments have to collaborate with each other. So collaborative relationships and teamwork is a very hard coded value, because in supply chain you can't deliver anything alone. Even the customer cannot deliver anything alone. Even supply chain provider cannot deliver anything alone. Everything has to be collaborative. So collaborative relationships and teamwork is an extremely important DNA for us. And I will now come to the most interesting DNA that we have, which you would not have seen in any other corporate. I have not seen it in any company. And that DNA is basically the essence of our business. As I said in the beginning, our business of supply chain is a business full of conflict. There will always be a conflict. For example, the customer wants the highest speed, and we also want the highest speed for him, for his products. But at the same time, customer wants the lowest cost. Now, those are conflicts. You can have great speed, but it will cost you more. You can have the lowest cost, but the speed will slow down. That's a huge conflict. Similarly, वो तो पुराना concept है ना इंडिया में, cheap and best. Actually, cheap and best are two completely conflicting strategies. It's either cheap or it is best. It cannot be both. But in the field of supply chain, all corporates want cheap and best. All corporates want cheap and best. Now that's a huge conflict. Even on our corporate customer side, the finance department would want us to have lower inventory, would want them to have lower inventories. Their sales department would want them to have the highest inventory so that their sales can be more. Their supply chain department would want lower inventories to keep the supply chain costs and would not want any peaks. So within the corporate side, within different departments, there's huge conflict. Between the corporate and the supply chain service provider, there's always a conflict, because the corporate wants Speed at low cost, the supply chain provider would want more money for higher speed. This is a business where conflicts have to be resolved intelligently and maturely every second of the day. Not every minute, every second of the day. And that is why we have a DNA in our company which trains our people to keep resolving conflict all the time so that we become masters of resolving conflict and we make the customer successful and ourselves successful. And that DNA is called warrior spirit. A warrior is one who resolves conflict, and hence the necessity of warrior spirit in each and every member of the stellar force, both staff and workers. We have to continuously keep resolving conflict every single day of our lives, and we should not be daunted by conflict because that's the nature of our business. The pride is in resolving conflicts where we create win-win solutions for all, for the corporates, for Stellar, for our workers, for our team members, for the customer side, for all the players. And this is what Stellar excels in, resolving conflict and creating win-win solutions for all stakeholders in the entire ecosystem. So these are the 6 DNAs or values which drives me personally as well as which drives Stellar.
And so, these are phenomenal values which you have for your organization. You explained them beautifully. I'm sure many people would have inspired from the kind of value system you have for yourself as well as your organization. Uh, I'm sure the kind of growth prospects you have and the kind of vision you have for this country when you talk about $40 trillion by 2047, which is in line with the vision of the Prime Minister of India. And I'm sure, as we talked earlier, that growth of our country as well as the growth of the world would originate from India. That's how we are rewriting the growth story today of the nation. And I'm sure Stellar would be one of the prominent players which would be helping in whatever capacity possible to transform the supply chain industry in India. It has been phenomenal having you on, Anshuman, on our growth story. And thank you so much for accepting to be a part of our growth story and come and share some of the vision, values, as well as the kind of journey which you have taken. I'm sure a lot of things are there in the growth for you as you move ahead in this in the next financial year. Thank you so much for being a part of Growth Story.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Thank you all.